All right. So good morning once again, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Um, Today, we're going to be talking about how to start an ESL ministry and some tips and suggestions for getting it going. Every program is different, but Literacy International has been doing this for more than 50 years, helping people get programs started. So what we do is we provide materials and training to equip churches around the world to begin literacy or English as a second language programs. And so we come alongside the local church and provide them with information, provide them with curriculum. We're there to train to answer questions. And we do all of this free of charge. And it's really a great way to get started with a program if you don't have one already. So our first step in beginning a program, is, of course, to pray about it. Begin praying for clarity of the vision of what God wants you to do. Pray for others who share your vision and desire to come alongside and join you in this, because you can't do it alone. One of the saddest things is I often talk to churches and they'll say, oh yes, we used to have an ESL ministry, but then our leader moved away or retired or passed away, and they hadn't trained up anyone else in the ministry with them. And so there was no one else to step in and continue it. So it's really important that you're not doing this alone, but you're getting others involved with you, because it's such a blessing. Once they get involved, they really get hooked on it because it's so much fun. It's so rewarding. So pray for other people who will share your vision and desire, and pray that God will send the right English language learners to be in your classes. But when you've got these people together, one or two other people who are also interested in doing this, you can start praying and planning in the following ways. Okay, so these are some questions to think about as you're planning. First of all, why do you want to start an English language ministry? Do you want to reach out and share the love of Jesus to your community by meeting their felt needs for learning English? Do you want to do it locally or overseas? Do you want to do it primarily to disciple and educate members of your own church? Or is it going to be more of an outreach to others? Do you want to provide a job skill to the poor? Do you want to build relationships with people? Think about what your purpose is in this ministry. And then the next question is, who do you want to reach? You may focus just on children or on adults or on teenagers or older people. There may be immigrants in your area or refugees that you want to work with. There may be prisoners. We've got some great programs going on in prisons teaching literacy and ESL. And it's really amazing because not only do the prisoners get a chance to meet Jesus and to be discipled during their time in prison, but then when they are released, they've got job skills that are going to help them as they move forward out of prison. You might be focusing on students or mothers or homeless people, a particular ethnic group, Christians or non-believers, people with disabilities. We've got some programs that are focusing on teaching English to people who are deaf and use sign language. Recovering addicts. Again, just think about the people group that the Lord places on your heart to reach out to. And then a third consideration is, where are you going to meet? Now, especially with COVID, more and more classes are going online. And so that is a viable way to do your ministry. We have one woman now in California. She has a class with 31 students in Cambodia that she just started this year. And already 3 of them have decided to be baptized since she started. And so it can be a very powerful thing to do even online. But if you want to meet in person, think about the space where you will meet. It could be at your church, which is great, but try to find a place that is really convenient for the English language learners you want to work with. So if your church is in one neighborhood and the people you're trying to reach are in a different neighborhood and they might not have transportation to your church, that's not necessarily the best place. Some English classes are held in apartment buildings where a lot of people live who want to learn English, and the apartment building manager lets them use the lobby for the English classes. You might do it in your home. You might do it in a cafe. Sometimes that's a really great way to do it, because if you find a little restaurant or cafe that has a slow time, they might say, oh, Tuesday nights are really slow for us. And they would be delighted for you to bring in 15 students every Tuesday who are gonna buy a cup of coffee and support their cafe. So that's another thing to think about, but pray where it might be. And think about, if you are targeting young parents, you may need a separate room for childcare. So if you've got a class for mothers, it's nice to have a room adjoining where someone can be caring for the children, maybe even doing a separate English lesson for the children while the parents are learning in a different room. You can also do it together depending on the age of the children. We do have a lot of classes that are mixed with families of adults and parents in the same class. And then a fourth consideration is when. What time and days will these classes be? You want to find a time that's convenient for your learners. So if they work during the day, you might have classes on nights or on weekends. If they are, working at night, you might have classes during the day. For many years, I did classes at factories. So I would do classes between the first and second shift of the factories. So the people who worked the first shift would stay 2 hours late at the factory for my English class. And the people who worked the second shift would come in 2 hours early for the English class. And so we would have that block of time where they were already at work, where they needed to be. And it was very convenient for them to fit that into their work schedule. But we do recommend that if you meet in person, you do it for 2-hour sessions at least twice a week. For example, Mondays and Thursdays from 7 to 9 p.m. If it's an online class, it's really hard, I think, to do a 2-hour online class. And so those online classes are often once 1 hour, but you can do it more frequently, 2 or 3 times a week. You want to avoid doing classes only 1 time a week, because 7 days between classes is just enough time for people to forget everything they learned. And then you end up never getting very far, because you're always reviewing the previous week's lesson. So do you guys have any questions about these questions? Do you have any questions about these 4 points so far?
Not yet, no.
Okay. Well, let's go on then. Oh, yes, go ahead.
So it looks like this, because I struggle this a little bit. It appears to me the more targeted you are, the easier this will be. And that's kind of like, if you know you're focusing on refugee community, or you know, students, or involving people at your church, it helps to have that specificity in order to know how you can be successful in the programs you start up.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And that doesn't mean that you can't take other people who may join, you know, who are not within that group. But if you do focus on a particular group, it makes it easier to choose the time and the place, which are very important. So again, I worked a lot with factory workers, and so it was easy to find a time and a place that worked with their schedule and the location where they were working. But you know, if you're working with young mothers, maybe mornings are best for them. Or if you're working with students, you might be able to do it, you know, in an area that's near their school after their classes. Yeah, that's a good point, Kimberly.
Thank you.
Okay. And then another thing is, try to involve your pastor and the congregation of your church. Don't try to just go out again and do this on your own. If you've got, because number one, it really is a blessing, and it's amazing. And it gets people in your congregation out of their pews and into doing something that's really meaningful. It gets them into discipling relationships, and they see how exciting it is to see people's lives change through this ministry. So you want to share the joy on this, and you also want to have that support from a lot of people. So I'm so excited that we have here today Pastor Alfred and Pastor Tang, who have the vision of this. We want this ministry to be part of the church's local mission outreach and supported by the entire congregation. So it's great if you can have the pastor announce on a Sunday the church's desire to start this English language ministry outreach, and to meet with you and your praying group after the service. So that, you know, the pastor can make an announcement if you think you might be interested in being a tutor, or helping to recruit students, or helping with childcare, or helping with refreshments. Please sign up over here after the service. And then this not only starts to get other people involved as they know about it, But if they also, people in your congregation might start to say, oh, you know what, my neighbor doesn't speak English, and maybe I can invite them to this program. Or they might say, well, I'm not interested in being a tutor, but I know my friend is a retired school teacher and she would love to do this. I'll let her know about it. So this serves as a way of getting the word out. We also, this will be a time when we can let people know that we're going to have a teacher training workshop. And so even if you don't have experience teaching, you will get it during this training that will be provided. And there's 2 ways that you can do the training. You can either do it in person or online. And so we have 8-week online teacher training classes that run at least twice a year. But we also have facilitators that are available to come to your church and do an in-person teacher training workshop for people in your congregation. So if you want to do the online teacher training course, you can register at our website, literacyinternational.net. For in-person training, you want to select some dates that don't conflict with other major events at your church. So you don't want to schedule it during Vacation Bible School or Easter week or something like that. Typically, we would do a Thursday and Friday night and then all day Saturday. But it would depend. We could do other schedules depending on what's good for you. But once you have a preferred date, you could contact LEI and find if there's a trainer in your area who could come and do this for you. We also, you would want to contact English language learners to practice with during the training. So one of the unique things about LEI's training is we encourage you from the very beginning, even before you know how to teach, to start teaching a student while you are learning. And so if we're doing this in person, you can contact, it depends on your area, right? So for Pastor Tang in Myanmar, probably there's many people in your country who need to learn English. If we are in North America, you might go to a church where everyone already speaks English, but you probably have an ethnic church nearby. So for example, in my town, we have, I think, 2 or 3 Spanish-speaking churches, and then 1 Serbian church. So I would probably call those pastors and say, hey, our church is going to start an English language program. Is there anyone in your congregation who would like to join? And so then you've already, that takes care of a lot of your recruitment. And it starts to build relationships with other churches in your area. So you can have more than 1 language group, and let the pastor know that you're doing these classes, tell them about the workshop dates, and invite those who want to learn English to participate in the workshop. So what we do is, as we're training the teachers, okay, this is step 1. This is how to teach the theme picture. And then we break into groups where you are with an actual English language learner and you practice teaching them that theme picture. So it's a great way. It's a lot of fun, and it gives you a very realistic experience of training. If you're doing it online, we do it the same way. We ask that you find a student to be, at least one student to be your practice student who is a real English language learner during the training. Okay. And then these are just some of the details for preparing for the teacher training workshop. If you do it in person, you will order or print the materials you need. You will call the trainer from LEI to confirm the dates and the living arrangements. So our trainers do not charge a fee. We are all missionaries and we provide our services for free, but we do need someplace to stay and something to eat while we're there. So we do request that housing and meals be provided during the workshop. If there's more than 15 people in the workshop, we typically have a second trainer come along. And then we just need a room to hold the training. So we usually have it in a horseshoe shape, and we have chairs and a whiteboard, and then some smaller boards for the breakout groups. So just those are some more details about the in-person training workshop. All right, so any questions about that aspect of it? Now I'm also, can you guys see, I switched to a new document now. This is a quick start guide.
I can see.
Okay, great, thank you. So this is a little guide also that's put out by a Canadian organization. It's called eslministries.org. And so they go into a little more detail about how to recruit teachers and determining, let me talk about these things. Decide upon the duration of classes. So typically we do a 2-hour session. Once the ESL classes start, we would do a 2-hour session in person, and we would do a break in the middle. Usually we take about 10 minutes or so just to have refreshments. So think about refreshments. You might want to offer coffee, tea, water, cookies, nothing fancy, but it's really nice to be able to break bread together and eat together during class. And that's always, it's really fun. We have kind of informal conversations during that time. And it makes it more relaxed and more of a homey environment, I think. But as for how long the classes will last, we generally do, if you're using the Light of the World curriculum, we generally recommend doing an 8-week course. And the reason is the Light of the World has 7 lessons and then a review lesson. And so if you do 2 lessons per week for 8 weeks, you could go through about 14 lessons, and it gives you a little extra time. So then you would have an extra day at the end to do a little graduation celebration. That would also give you a little time in the beginning. Maybe the first day of class, you're doing registration and assessment. And so that seems to be a good period of time to get people to commit for 8 weeks, and then maybe take a break of a week or 2 before you do your next session of 8 weeks. Determine whether you will charge a fee. So a lot of this depends where you are, what your expenses are. Many churches offer these classes for free, but you may have charges for materials, for internet, for all kinds of things. And so we do find that charging a small fee to cover the cost of any photocopying, if you're printing the materials for them, kind of has students, it puts some skin in the game, as we say. So they are committed to this because they've invested something in it. We never turn away people who cannot afford it. We would instead offer them scholarships or offer them the chance to work in order to pay their fee. So you might say, you might tell people in your congregation, you know what, we've got 5 students who cannot afford the $20 charge for the book. So would anyone in the congregation be willing to pay their scholarship? That's one way to do it. You could also have the students say, you could say, you know, we really need help with recruitment. And so we can give you your materials for free, but in exchange, we'd like you to put up flyers in your neighborhood and, you know, talk to people or stay here in the classroom after it's over and help us clean up the room, something like that, giving them a little job in exchange for it. Any questions about that? I also want to mention that, especially as we get to the higher level, so people who are studying English because they want to get into university, if they are business people and they need it to further their career, often you are offering the same service that is being offered by schools that charge tuition. And so in some places, for example, we have a English school in Benin, West Africa, where this is a way that the teachers make their living. They fund their ministry in part with this school. And so the tuition is like $200 per session. And that allows them to be able to devote themselves to this ministry full time. They're working with business people who can afford to pay that tuition. And also there are other English schools in the area that charge at least that much for their English classes. And so since they are using their time to offer a service that has a value, they charge for it. So it really depends on your model in your ministry and the economy in your area. But certainly if people can pay for classes, you can ask them to pay for them. Okay. And then advertising the classes, you want to get the word out. So again, reaching out to churches in your area that have a lot of non-native English speakers is one way to do it. You can also post things on your Facebook page and your church website. You can send out email. It's great if you can have somebody translate the announcement into several different languages so that different people can read it. You can put up a sign in front of your church. So I know there's a church not far away from me and they have a big sign in the front that says English classes 7 p.m. and with the phone number there, so people can just see it and call them to sign up. Student placement is can be a little problematic because there are so many variations, right? So we have people who are 0 level beginners who don't know a word of English. And then we have people who know some English. We have people who know a lot of English, but still want to learn more. And so it's very helpful if you can group people into a class of others that have similar level of English proficiency. That's not always possible. In this document from ESL Ministries, they suggest starting with 2 levels to separate beginners from more advanced students. And so you would have the beginner group and the more advanced group. You'll have to see how it works for you. There are a number of placement tests available. You can use the Light of the World final exam for a placement test, and that'll kind of give you an idea if they need to start at the beginning or more of an intermediate or advanced level. And I think we'll probably have another webinar in the future that talks more about assessment, because that's a pretty big topic. Just making a note of that. Okay. Any questions so far again?
Nope, we're doing well. This is
Okay.
great stuff.
Okay, good. And so some of these, again, we touched on these: arranging for childcare, consider transportation. If some of your students live far away, you might try to find someone in the congregation who can drive them. Plan for the opening. So it's nice to be able to have an announcement, have everybody in the congregation praying for you as you open up. And so starting the classes and finishing the classes, we have the opportunity to celebrate and to share it with the whole congregation. Refreshments we touched upon. You might want to have some people help with refreshments. One thing, sometimes it can really be a burden if we tell the students, oh, we're going to have a potluck and everybody brings something. It's fun to taste different dishes, but sometimes it's really a financial hardship for the students to bring extra food. And for many of the students, especially for the women, it's a lot of extra work because they feel like they need to make something really fancy and they spend extra time cooking it. And so what I will often do is like for our final day of class, we have a graduation and a celebration. We will have someone other than the students bring food in. So we'll order a pizza, or we'll have people in the congregation bring food in for them, so the students don't have to do that extra work. Okay. Also, they talk about the importance of praying with the teachers, and also debriefing, getting feedback from your teachers about what worked, what didn't work. Providing social service information, especially if you are working with immigrants and refugees. They may have questions about healthcare, schooling, legal matters. And I find many times I'm a resource person for them, helping them to get these things. So it's nice if you have access to that kind of information that you can provide your students with. Celebrating special occasions. So they talk about Christmas, Easter, Valentine's Day, Asian New Year are great times to celebrate with your students and do something special during the class. We really want our classes to be fun and a place of joy and celebration that students look forward to going to. And so to kind of break up the challenges, because it is really hard work learning. I'm sorry, I was just looking at a message in the chat. To break up sort of the difficulties and the challenges of all the hard work they're doing, it's important to celebrate often. Okay. And a few other things. You may need to, as your program grows, you may need to build a budget. And so things that you could have expenses for might be the curriculum. So all of our curriculum is offered free of charge, but there's printing costs depending on if you're using printed materials. And you don't have to use printed materials. If your students have mobile phones, they can use their mobile phones, and they can use a notebook. But a lot of times teachers do like to print out the materials so the students can write on them. Okay. And then you can start to, it talks about training your congregation in discipling and getting the church involved with these new students. And I will send you guys the link for this quick start guide from eslministries.org as well.
Great.
All right, so that is it's just some basic information about how to start up an English language ministry with your church.